Okay, so I think we'll kick off, everybody, and welcome to the webinar. So this is our free webinar on the pre-scene. So I'll just go through a few of the basics, and if there's any sound problem, just let me know as we're going through. Let me know if there's any sound problem, and I will sort it out. So first thing is, if you want to get any of my links, and if I mention anything on links, including my YouTube channel, please look. You can scan this QR code, which has got all my links. It's got my WhatsApp if you want to book a one-to-one meeting with me. If you want to get my podcast information or YouTube information, these are all the links. If you haven't got your scanner with you, or if you're watching this on your phone, it's www.sblguru.com, and they will have all the links there. So if you want to contact me after, pretty much everything is there for you. Okay, so my goal is to get 1,000 YouTube, and I am on 982 right now as of today. So please, if you do nothing else, this seminar is free. So just please like and subscribe to my YouTube, and I'm hoping to get 1,000 subscribers, which means YouTube starts to pay me, and that can happen by the end of this weekend. So if you do nothing else, help me out and please like my YouTube. Now also, I've got a podcast, so if you want the links to the podcast, I've just uploaded a podcast which is relevant to your examination. I've just uploaded a podcast. So the latest podcast is about building strategic partnerships in a veterinary practice. I just uploaded it literally last night. So if you want to find out how to get that, just go to www.sblguru. It's on Apple. It is on Spotify. It is on wherever you get your podcasts generally, and it's on YouTube as well. So if you want to, it's just 8 minutes, 10 minutes long. My podcast, there's a couple there that are probably relevant. One's about technology, smart technology, which I think could be relevant for this exam. And the other one, this one is the latest one. I might be adding another one as well, so keep an eye on that as well. So that is the podcast, and it's a great way to revise. It's all free as well. Pretty much my courses are over, so I do, my full-time job is to prepare people for ACCA exams. I don't have any other job. Everything is finished. My course is over. My revision course boot camp is over. There's only one thing left to do because I've just reopened this course due to demand, and that is the double mock course. So if you want to, and it's totally, it's not for everybody. If you want to, you can do the double mock course, but you have to sign up by Monday, and that would mean sitting the mock exam based on the pre-scene on Tuesday or Wednesday this week. It will be sat on the ACCA practice platform, mock 1, based on the pre-scene. I can then mark it and give you detailed feedback. You'll also get a much longer version of this webinar. This is a shortened version. You'll get the full version with extra notes of this webinar. You'll get a debrief on the mock exam, and I'll also give you a second mock exam on Friday, also based on the pre-scene, and we're going to review that in the live session. So if you're interested in this course, get in touch, and you've only got until Monday to sign up, and you must be available Tuesday or Wednesday to sit the mock exam on the practice platform. So let me know if you're interested in this course. It will be closing on Monday at midnight, and you won't be able to buy it anymore, but that's where it is. So remember that the feedback I've got is that the pre-scene is hardly used on the day of the exam. So the majority of your answers, most people said the pre-scene is 5% of the exam. So don't be obsessed by the pre-scene material. The answers and examples are going to be based on the post-scene material on the day. So pre-scene exam, it's for background. It's for industry background. And most people said, not that it's kind of irrelevant, but it wasn't really, they didn't use it on the day of the exam. And even the ACCA said you should not really be looking much at the pre-scene on the exam. You should be looking at the post-scene on the examination. So it's all about the post-scene. It's all about the post-scene for this course, right? So don't worry too much about the pre-scene. And a lot of people, they spend a lot of time on the pre-scene, and I think it's not a good idea. Spend time revising your technical knowledge. Spend time on your topics. Yeah, the price of the course, it's GBP 200 is that double mock course for you if you want to do that course. So don't get obsessed. And the most common question I'm asked in the exam is, what can this topic come in the examination? That's the most common question I'm asked in the exam. Can this topic come in the exam? And the answer is yes, anything can come. So Porter's Diamond, can it come, Marty? Porter's Diamond, there's nothing on the pre-scene about Porter's Diamond. Yes, it can come. Anything can come. So don't just think it's going to be very obvious things that are going to come in the exam. They can ask about any part of the syllabus. So, you've got to know the entire syllabus. It's not that predictable sometimes. And they can ask things from left field. And they asked about the Baldridge model a couple of exams ago, and like very sort of fringe area of the syllabus. So look out for that in your examination, that anything can come, and there will be unexpected things that will come in the post-scene examination. Make sure for this one, you know the key features, and we'll go through some of those. That's what the pre-scene is there for. It's there for you to understand the key features. Read it a few times. The ACCA recommend you don't spend more than 2 hours looking at the pre-scene, and this webinar is about 45 minutes. So you don't want to obsess with it. Just get the industry features. Everything, 95% of the examples you're going to give is going to be in the post-scene examination, and everything can change. So you don't have to do massive research on the industry. You should avoid speculating on areas to be examined. Sometimes it's very difficult to predict. They can ask anything. You should not be using the pre-scene as the main source of material on the day of the examination, right? So honestly, you should really not even be looking at the pre-scene on the day of the exam. It's just for background. It's just for industry. Your examples must come from the post-scene, right? So actually, if looking at the pre-scene is going to be a waste of time, really. Only about 5% of your exam is going to be based on the pre-scene. It's just there for background. So I can't say it too long. Don't spend 20 hours looking at the pre-scene, because you need to spend 20 hours making sure your technical knowledge is strong, making sure you know about things like the environmental models, risk models, corporate governance models in the examination. So it's much better to spend time revising technical, doing past paper questions, than to spend time on the pre-scene. I'm sure you know about the exam now, but 3 hours, 15 minutes, and there will be 3 tasks, but there's normally part A, part B, part C. So you've got to do a number of different things, and you can be completing it on the TestReach platform, which is not easy to use. So, if you've not used TestReach before, please go and practice it. It's a little bit, I won't say difficult to use, but it will take a little bit of getting used to. If you're not familiar with it, it will slow you down in the examination. So have a practice on the TestReach. Don't see TestReach for the first time on the day of the exam. Practice writing your answers. It's a lot slower than writing in Word. So take that into account. And opening the windows is a bit clunky. So practice that before the day of the exam. If you didn't know, there are 5 professional marks. You should know that by now, a week before the exam. 5 types of professional marks. They will be asked once in the exam, and professional marks will always be 4 marks in the examination. So you're going to get 4 marks on skepticism, 4 marks on analysis, 4 marks on evaluation, 4 marks on communication, or 4 marks on commercial acumen. The question will clearly state what the professional marks for. Weak students do badly on professional marks. So it's worth spending time understanding how to get those professional marks in the exam. Okay, so let's go straight into the pre-scene. This will be recorded. This will be on YouTube. So if you missed something, literally within the next couple of hours after this webinar is finished, I will be putting this on YouTube for you. So let's go through. So it's always a bit weird. The pre-seen material is always something you don't expect. And this time it's about the vet industry. So the Preceuro, what a name they've chosen for this case study. So it's about a veterinary service. It's been established for 32 years. Now, quite interestingly, they tell you what a pet is. They define what a pet is because we don't know what pets are, right? We're just so thick that we don't know what pets are. But pet is used primarily as a source of companionship and pleasure. Really, they include dogs and cats. Wow, didn't know that. So key thing there is the core resource of any veterinary practice is the specialist skills, and they are in short supply. So when we talk about this case, the first thing that jumps out potentially could be a question on Porter's 5 forces. So Porter's 5 forces potentially could be a question in the exam. And if you're in a service industry, the suppliers are people. In a service-based organization, your suppliers are people. So that's one thing potentially you might want to look at, doing a little practice and working out what the competitive environment looks like for this market and this industry. Typical vet provides a range of services. These are all kind of standard. The interesting thing, based on my research, is this is a big opportunity. So there's a big market out there for healthy treats. Now, healthy treats, in particular, healthy treats are given to animals, dogs, cats, whatever, but they are given when they are not sick. So they're like the dog equivalent or cat equivalent of vitamin tablets. That is a really big market right now. So it's a major opportunity. And that is quite a high margin business. So in terms of like the services that they're offering, the non-prescription medicine is a major opportunity. This healthy treat is a big opportunity in the market. Most practices provide guidance and advice on pet care, but in this company, their website is not very good. So that's something that they can look at in terms of engaging with the customers going forward. You may be asked about things in relation to how can they improve their website and their marketing. Specialist pet food industry, there's also a massive market in terms of if you have a pet, people tend to spend a lot of money on their pets, right? So if this vet organization, which is facing a very competitive market right now, if they want to make more money, they can push those extra accessories. Accessories generally got high margin. We've got a market of customers who are going to be buying those accessories. So that's a really big opportunity as well. If they're looking for additional revenue stream, they can push those extra services. If you see people wandering around London, they've got their dog with a jacket on and people spend stupid money on this type of product. So that's a major issue in the organization. Can everybody hear me okay? Yeah. Okay. So, yeah. So, consultations, the average consultation is 15 minutes. So 15 minutes, you can work out that if we're absolutely efficient in seeing a customer, we've got 8 hours in the day, 4 hours. So we're looking to maybe see about 32 customers a day. So we need quite a lot of people in that office. And that is if we're being super efficient. If we got online, it can be delivered from anywhere and people don't have to come to the office. So online seems to be something they're talking about in the examination, online services. So that's something that they may well ask about in the examination, right? Moving towards a telemedicine type service. Now, if we look at this business, there is an issue with large organizations generally acquire small ones. So when we're looking at the exam, we can see where we are. Later on, we'll see our position in terms of market share. Definitely there's a potential question about acquisition. Now, it can come in two ways. We get acquired, So a big pet company buys us. Should we take the offer? Or we as a company, we buy, Preceuro buys one of the other companies. So anything like that, where we've got an acquisition involved, or a strategic acquisition, or even a partnership, then it's going to be a potential for a question on suitability, acceptability, and feasibility. So make sure you know your technical stuff on suitability, acceptability, and feasibility. So big pet companies are going into the market and they're acquiring veterinary companies. So two things there. We could be the subject for an acquisition, so that's a potential question. It would still go to suitability, acceptability, and feasibility. And there is a potential synergy working with pet food and vet services. It's a clear synergy. So it opens up another question for you in relation to partnerships. And that's what I talked about on my podcast, which I released yesterday, which was about how to build effective partnerships, and it all related to the veterinary industry and gave real life examples of companies that are involved in partnerships in the veterinary industry. Okay, so if we look at this market share, multinational organizations, the big three control 52% of the business. But there are hundreds of small businesses employing less than 10 people. So what I was thinking here, potentially, and I mentioned it in my podcast, there is a potential question on franchising, right? So if you're a smaller practice, especially if this Preceuro has got a very good reputation, one way we can build revenue streams is franchising our brand name to some of these smaller companies and smaller organizations, because we have got very good expertise, we've got good innovation, and it would definitely potentially help those smaller companies to gain market share. So in terms of, there's lots of small companies, if we can use a franchise model, and again, I talked about it in my latest podcast, how vet companies use franchising to expand and grow their business and grow their organization. You may be asked about advantages of this type of partnership model where you're talking about franchising. You may be asked about disadvantages of this franchising model as well. So you may be asked about advantages or disadvantages of this franchise model. So we're here. So when I talked about acquisition, is potentially if we buy Denny's, we're going to have 13% and we're going to be kind of a reasonably big player. So as we grow bigger, there's lots of advantages of that, and that's what we'll talk about in a suitability, acceptability, feasibility. Should we go for the acquisition? They'll give you some information in the post scene about dentist clinics, and then you will have to evaluate that. So it's a very good growth market to be in, right? So it's a big opportunity. Pets are living longer. There is advances in pet nutrition. Again, I mentioned it earlier. It's a big opportunity. It's a big area, and that's a big growth area. Also got high margin business. We're in this really competitive market for veterinary services, but this one could give us an additional revenue streams going forward. Payment plans are popular. Payment plans are good because they can lock in the customers, right? Right now, customers are quite powerful. The payment plan locks in the customers. The disadvantage of this payment plan is potentially in relation to the cash flow in the organization. It's going to potentially impact your cash flow, and that's a financial impact. There may be some financial stuff in the post scene about cash flow. The main message is people will spend money on their pets, but a lot of the customers are relatively they don't have that much money, but they still want to spend money. So people spending money, we've got to maximize the revenue per customer. That would be that KPI. So if they come in for a veterinary service, how do we maximize that revenue? Sell them a jacket for their dog. Sell them a, what else can we sell them? Anything, right? We can sell them a jacket for their dog. We can sell them anything. So that's what we're looking for here. as opportunities for the organization to have additional revenue streams and to boost their profitability. Biggest portion of cost is the staff costs. And if we go online, we don't need a premises anymore. We're in city center locations where the rent is expensive. So if we are going to other locations, such as online, we will save a lot of those very high rental costs. So that's something that is important to consider, right? The high rental cost is important to consider. And, outsourcing. Is there a way we can potentially outsource some of our costs, right? Is there a potential to cut some of those costs by using outsourcing, which might involve using foreign vets who might be cheaper than using the Ireland vets? So is there a possibility? Again, it links towards partnership, outsourcing. What are the benefits? What are the problems? What are the issues of outsourcing if we're going to try and do that to reduce money? To cut the costs and maybe enhance our margin in a very competitive market. Interesting part here is that there's a big growth in 16 to 34-year-olds. These people, these groups, 16 to 34-year-olds, they are very affected by social media. So it says to me that, if we're going to try to target those 16 to 34-year-olds in the post scene, you may get a question where they're asking you about how to improve the e-marketing, development, a marketing strategy. How can we use internet, e-marketing strategies? So make sure you have lots of examples about the internet and e-marketing strategies like TikTok videos, Instagram, and how could we use that in the examination to make and attract those younger customers, right? So that could be something. So make sure when you're doing your revision, you have a very good knowledge of the different e-marketing strategies and examples relevant to a veterinary practice. That's the important thing. It's not just a knowledge exam. You must always apply to the case study. There is increasing pressure to have more hours, right? So the thing about this company is it's a very traditional company. It's very much 9 to 5 city center locations, but customers are wanting out of hours services. They want weekend consultations. They want evening consultations. Again, it ties in with this idea is how do we service these customers and these customer demands, because we've got to give customers what they want. So it might point to something we can do with outsourcing. Can we outsource part of our business? Can we use the telemedicine to service customers outside hours? Not necessarily our staff, but maybe looking at other staff from other countries or partnerships. What can we do to boost our telemedicine sales? So this is what the customers want. In our current structure, it's quite difficult to provide that. We need to have some changes, and that points towards partnership and outsourcing. Okay, so in terms of the revenue structure, we've not been really given any financial information, but it says the consultancy fees are going to be quite similar. So that it seems like generally they don't compete on consultancy fees, but they compete on the way they make their margin is by medicine. So they mark up the pharmaceutical product. That is how they make their money. So the fees is relatively low, but they charge you a lot on the drugs. So that later on we see that's going to be a problem because people are going to go outside to get those medicines. So that is the structure. Medicine is where you make your margin, right? That's how the company makes their margin. So big issue is recruitment and retention of staff. Recruitment and retention of staff. So what I'm thinking about here is I'll be looking at something called, what do you think? If there's an issue, just tell me in the group chat. Issue of recruitment of staff. It's very challenging. We've got staff turnover of 13%. What question do you think that leads to potentially in the SBL exam? Just tell me in the group chat. What question does it lead to? Yeah, potentially you've got to be looking at, well done Rajan, well done Clav, we're looking at potentially talent management in the exam, right? So how, well done Gayatari, talent management potentially could be on your exam paper. So make sure you're familiar with the different ways of retaining staff, building a strong talent management system. Lots of examples are needed to get marks in the examination. A lot of pet owners cannot afford, so that's an issue as well. And there's this 24-hour service, which I mentioned. Outsourcing potentially could solve that. Cost issues, I also thought something about insurance. Could there be some issue where we can actually, a lot of pet owners now, they go for insurance. Could that be something we could investigate to try to help customers who are having trouble to pay? Again, nice Porter's 5 forces point here. Client loyalty is low. So if we're looking at the bargaining power of customers, right? They are willing to shop around. There's high competition. There's a range of services. So generally, bargaining power of customers, right? They've got a wide choice. There's lots of competition in the market. So it leads to a nice Porter's 5 forces type question, potentially in the examination. So look out for that. And, you know, they're all pretty much there. We've got to look for ways to lock in our customer. One way we do that is by having the payment scheme and payment system. So in terms of pet stores, pet superstores, they are cheap, so you can get all your pet food there, but they've got no expertise. In my podcast, I talk about a joint venture which happened in the US where I think it's Australia, one of the two, where the pet food company worked with the pharmaceutical company in a joint venture where they put the veterinary company inside their pet store. So that's actually happened in the market and in the industry. So look out for that. That would be a joint venture partnership. I've discussed the advantages and disadvantages on my podcast, right? Online medication is a big threat because the way they make their margin is by marking up the drugs. If people buy the drugs online, then it means we're getting a much lower margin, and that's going to have a big impact on profitability. We've not been given any profitability data, but if more and more people are buying the drugs online, then it's going to be a problem for the profitability of the veterinary practice. Talked about already, and telehealth is a big issue. More convenience, lower prices, but maybe the quality maybe not there. It's not as good as going into a physical veterinary practice, but it's offering lower prices. So it's another competitor potentially in the market, and that's something that it might be explored in the post scene, right? Should we set up a telehealth practice? How do we do it? What are the issues? What are the problems? Is it feasible to do it for us and to get into that market? So they'll give you a lot more information in the post scene about how it was set up, potential costs, who the partner might be, how do we do the outsourcing in the organization. When we look at the case, I'm always looking for things that look out of whack, and they seem to be like incongruous. So for the CSR, corporate social responsibility, CSR, seems like this is not a big pollutant business. So why have they kind of mentioned environmental impact on the industry? So based on this idea that there's like waste production, medical usage, negative press reports about environmental, what kind of question do you think they might ask about in relation to that? Just tell me in the group chat, what type of question could they ask about? Tell me in the group chat while I just get a glass of water. Yeah, it could be EMAS, Nelly, yeah. So they could ask, like, it's kind of like a fringy area of the syllabus, something about the environmental management and audit system. Anything else you've got in mind they could ask about on the examination? Anything else they could ask about on the exam? It could be a stakeholder question, yeah. It could be a stakeholder question. So this question very much lends itself to stakeholder analysis as well. So it's very lends itself to stakeholder analysis type question. So, you've got lots of different stakeholders. You've got the customer, you've got society. So lots of, you've got competition, competitor, stakeholders in the organization. Anything else you think? So we've got EMAS, possibly EMAS. Yeah, potentially integrated reporting, right? So some type of CSR, disclosure, integrated reporting, disclosure. So anything on that could be an issue for you in the organization. So if you never heard of EMAS until Nelly mentioned it just then, maybe it's something you need to look up. What are the stages of EMAS certification, how to get it? Something they might ask, which is one of those weird things which was maybe a little bit unexpected, but they can just throw in for 10 marks in the post-scene examination. So integrated reporting, disclosure. There's a big thing, based on my research, there's a big thing in the exam, in the industry, which is based on organic pet food. So organic pet food is a big thing, and also a big sort of trend area in the market is environmentally friendly pet food, making sure that things are organic, that we're not damaging the environment when we're making the pet food. So this seems like a bit incongruous to the rest, and it doesn't seem like a massively polluting industry. So this one could be something you need to prepare for in the examination. Also, in human healthcare, we've got AI and machine learning, and these are capital intensive, but they can increase the quality and breadth of services offered. So what about this one? What do you think they might ask about on the innovation and development? What kind of part of the SBL syllabus do you think they might want to talk about here? Definitely AI, right? So maybe try and think about what are the AI applications. Anything else? Signy, well done. Anything else about AI? Big data, right? So yeah, potentially big data analytics. He does like questions about big data, machine learning. So make sure potentially robotics. Yeah, robotics could come up. That was in one of the ACCA articles about robotics. Yeah, definitely. So cybersecurity, I think, is possible, and I'll talk about why later on. Yeah, so Signy, cybersecurity. I'll tell you the reason why that is a good possibility in as we go through. But yeah, so when you're preparing the next week, make sure you know your big data analytics, prescriptive, descriptive, diagnostic. Make sure you know how that would apply, what it means, examples that might be relevant to a veterinary. Make sure you know any AI applications for a veterinary practice. You might just look it up, type in Google AI veterinary practice, and there'll be 2 or 3 examples which might give you like wonderful professional marks in the exam. So make sure you're aware of it and don't neglect it. I'm not saying it's definitely coming up. I don't know what's coming up. We're just trying to anticipate things. So make sure you know about these things. Yeah, so we've got potential using technology to cut consulting times. Diagnostics might be an important one for the big data, or AI can help with diagnostics. So, and potentially speed up service, lower the client costs. So these are things that, you must go into the exam with knowledge, technical knowledge. People think SBL doesn't require any technical knowledge. They are wrong. You need to have that, but you need to apply it in the exam. It must always be a veterinary application. Link it to a veterinary. Don't just say, there are 4 types of big data. They're diagnostic, prescriptive, descriptive. I need example for a veterinary. That's what you've got to prepare in the exam. Prepare examples before you go in. Look at veterinary examples you might be able to use in the exam. It also talks about technology being used by competitors. So that's an issue mentioned again. Telehealth. So telehealth, something about telehealth seems to be indicated. He's mentioned it twice. There is regulation in the industry. There's 2 levels, standard and advanced. If they have the higher one, could it potentially give them a competitive advantage in the market? Whenever you look at SBL, you've always got to look at risks. So the union, potentially we've got the risk of strike action there. So whenever I see trade union, I'm slightly concerned they're going to go on strike. I've got compliance risk, right? So we have obligations. So we must protect our staff. So again, there's a risk there, infected bites. With risk questions, they tend to ask, analyze the risk, impact of risk, or risk management. So make sure you understand potentially how to manage these risks in the organization. Make sure you know your TARA framework, transfer, avoid, reduce, accept, but have specific examples in your mind related to the veterinary industry. There's a large notice informing clients that they can request a written prescription. So that's what I mentioned earlier. This really hits our margin because we give the service at a quite lowish price and we make our money on the pharmaceuticals. But according to the legal obligation, customers have the right to get a prescription. So that basically cuts down our margin. And so I also think here about there's ethical issues, right? So there may be a situation where there's one clinic doing really well, but they're not following the rules. They've got high profit, but they're not following the rules. They are not effectively following this thing about giving the client a prescription. So it could link into an ethical question, right? People breaking the rules, breaking the ethical guidelines, breaking the legal obligations. So make sure you know your ACCA IFAC principles, okay? IFAC principles like integrity, professional competence comes in here for this type of practice. Professional behavior, objectivity. So these are things you might be asked about in terms of they might be breaking these rules, people not following. There could be situations where an animal's died, and how do you disclose it, disclosure on that. So good thing here we talk about in terms of acquisition, they definitely have had previous experience in integrating previous companies in the organization. It has been very successful. So acquisition, if they ask about acquisition, acquiring your competitor, they have had some success in integration. So that's one of a big tick point on suitability. We've got skill or feasibility. We have skills on integrating companies. They've got quite a great location, but remember these city center locations are very expensive. They've got lots of staff and they've got all these veterinarians in there. So they've got high fixed costs, right? All these expensive, well-paid veterinary staff. So their strategy is differentiation, good quality, premium price. What are the differentiating factors? They've got good location. They've got a wide range of services. So a lot of the competitor might not be able to have acupuncture, for example. So this is what they're more quality, their innovation, and they've got really good customer service. So their strategy is differentiation. They've also got a very strong brand, so a big strength in their brand. but their market share is falling, their revenues are falling. So why? Why are their revenues falling? Well, there's lots of competition in the market on price. So how are they going to deal with the competition? Should they be going into telehealth to compete directly, maybe under a different brand name, maybe not under their own brand name, under their own brand name? They might cannibalize their own business, but maybe a different brand name. There's different options there. So how to deal with the competition is likely to be a focus on the post-scene examination. When you look at the ownership structure, what are the things you notice about the board of directors? Just tell me in the group chat. What are you noticing about the board of directors? Or what are you noticing about the board of directors? Anything you notice about the board of directors? Executive chair. What are you noticing about the executive chair? Right. Bill, that's wrong. Okay, so yeah, Francine got it right. So this is kind of a bit weird, right? And honestly, a couple of things, right, which you need to know about. First of all, corporate governance. The purpose of corporate governance is to make sure the management act in the best interest of the shareholders. The management act in the best interest of the shareholders. So here, it's a bit weird, right? Because there's no agency problem in this company. Why is there no agency problem in this company? Because the shareholders are all working in the company. It's got doesn't say it's a family business, but it's very similar to a family business type structure here, right? So employees, directors are all shareholders. So they know what's going on in the business. Only one NED, the purpose of the NED is to act on behalf of the shareholders, right? So having one NED, a lot of people go, oh, they need to have NED, they need to have this. But actually, all the shareholders are actively, apart from the original one, are actively working in the business, apart from one of them. So 90% of the shareholders of the company are working and they are on the board of directors. So there is no particular major agency problem in this company, right? So a lot of people are going to say, oh, it's going to be a question about lack of NEDs. We need to recruit more NEDs. Do you really need to recruit more NEDs? When the shareholders are all in the business, working full-time in the business, 90% of the shareholders are going to be there at every board meeting. So I think it's a bit of a red herring, really, in the business. Yeah. Yes, it's actually okay. It's okay in a private company to have this. It's not a particular issue. People are going to go off and say, oh, we must have NED, we must have committees. But don't forget, all the shareholders are actively involved in the running of the business. My main concern here is no marketing director and no IT director. That's more of a concern for me. We've got no IT director. Our technology sucks, right? So that's going to definitely be a potential area the examiner is going to ask you about, how to improve our technology in the future. We've got no marketing director, right? So our marketing, especially young people, is more of an issue. Should we expect a corporate governance question? You know what I'm going to say, right? If you say, should we expect a question on this? Anything is possible, right? Anything is possible. Now, a couple of things. If we decide to list the company, right? If we decide to list the company, they will need to improve their corporate governance if we decide to list the company in the future. So if they go for a listing, definitely they need to significantly improve their corporate governance if they go for a listing in the future. Yeah, so they will need to improve it. But right now, it's like a family business. All the shareholders, apart from one, are actively working in the organization. So no committee structure. Potentially you can say that even if it's a family business, we need a committee structure for best practice. But in terms of auditors, the shareholders are there making decisions about this. remuneration committee, they're not ripping off the shareholders because they are the shareholders, right? So this is a bit of an issue. Lack of independence of the internal audit. It should report to somebody independent, not necessarily to the financial director. But it's not a bigger issue as you would normally expect to see. Let's go one question. It's possible corporate governance, could it come? Yeah, it could come in terms of if they're listing, how should they change their corporate governance? They could potentially ask that, but not necessarily an issue. So we've got a little bit about the structure. It seems like there's quite a formalized structure. One thing I picked up here is potentially you've got legal risks, which if we asked about risk management, legal risk could come in. And there's a business development director who is trying to look for opportunities, big opportunities, pet nutrition, additional services is an opportunity they might want to consider. Seems like a lot of centralized decision making, all those shareholders at the top. If we're at lower level, we might feel we don't have a chance to become a shareholder. We don't have a chance to become a director in this company. And that could be a source of dissatisfaction because we can't be an equity partner in this company. All the shares are tied up. It's going to potentially be a problem for the organization. There could be like more involvement, right? So we've got a lot of fresh young graduates, people at the lower level. For the pricing, I think that may not be, but there seems to be a lot of decision-making made at the top. So I think one thing we can talk about in terms of talent management, retaining staff, is to get people more involved, get people's ideas in terms of new services. So if people are involved, they're more engaged, they're more likely to stay inside our company, inside our organization. So pricing, maybe it has to be centralized, but new services, we can potentially get the ideas of the employees, right? Engagement would mean they're more likely to stay in our company. Yeah, so, the leadership style might need to change as we grow, right? So more participative, like the culture, could come into it. Our software seems quite old, so straight away, my old software seems like there could be an issue with cybersecurity, right? It's 8 years old software, is quite old. Maybe we're using a server, could point towards cloud, possibility of using cloud going forward. Cloud is a big part of your syllabus. They've never really asked about cloud. So disaster recovery also potentially comes in here. So with this really old software, it's off the shelf, has it been updated? Maybe subject to cyber attack, cyber security may come in here because of the nature of the software. Website is very basic. There's no email, there's no proper social media. The website is rubbish. Sometimes the most obvious thing is not what they ask, just to let you know, right? But it seems like, e-marketing, how can we improve our e-marketing? How can they work better? What can they do? Especially for mobile, right? There's a big section about mobile. I did a podcast about it, about mobile technology. So that's something that would really fit well with this business. And it seems like right now they're like not using any technology. So it might be e-marketing, but it could be mobile technology as well, coming into the question. In the past, they had innovation, but now they don't. They've not made any major investment in technology advances. So again, it points to your AI, big data stuff. So, technology-based questions in your exam. Previously, they were strong in innovation, but now they're quite weak. So there's a big part of the syllabus called entrepreneurship and intrapreneurship on your SBL syllabus. So make sure you know ways in which we can create a more entrepreneurial and intrapreneurial culture. Okay. They've got very limited hours, so they're not really servicing their customers well. Okay, so customers want after hours, they're like 9 to 5 or 8:30 to 5:30. So that's an issue, potentially, losing customers, losing market share because they're not meeting the customer need. Points towards telemedicine, outsourcing as a potential solution. This package is good because it locks in the customers. This package plan reduces their bargaining power, but potentially it's going to have a big impact on our cash flow because we're not getting paid up front. Potential bad debts could be high, and I mentioned it before, insurance. Could we use insurance as a way to improve our cash flow and get more payment? Yeah, again, they're sort of really signposting it. Marketing, very basic. We know potentially a question about e-marketing, mobile technology, mobile data. It seems their purchasing is very efficient in some ways, but in terms of pet food, it's not very efficient. So is there something we can do there? Technology, using technology to improve that. So no economies of scale here, but they're very efficient here. So possibly bribery and corruption, ethical question about purchase of pet food. Now we know that there is a risk is a big part of the syllabus. So I mentioned already, make sure you know how to analyze a risk by looking at impact and probability, assess the impact of a risk, and risk management strategies. So make sure you've got a clear risk management strategy for each one of these factors here. And this mistakes in diagnosis potentially is going to be an ethical factor, ethical treatment, ethical issues here about mistreatment, misdiagnosis could be a great ethical question for the examination. Basically, rubbish, right? So revenue's falling, satisfaction's falling, client satisfaction's falling, turnover is increasing, and new clients is falling. So we need to make some significant material changes going forward in our business if we're going to address these issues. In terms of the pet services, they give the customers what they want. Are they doing that? Not really, because they're not. Customers want after hours and they're offering 9 to 5. So are they achieving this? Retain staff? They're not achieving that either. Be leaders in vet care? Well, they haven't been innovative recently. They don't have a really good technology for their client service. And we don't know, but probably their profits are going down. So, they may ask you how the objectives have not been achieved and what actions could they take to improve their objectives. Honesty, integrity is mentioned, which is kind of links to an ethical question about ethics. Innovative services is part of their core values. And they mention stakeholders here. So it's like, just slip it in, stakeholders. So make sure understand the different stakeholders and make sure you can do Mendelow's stakeholder analysis on power and interest. Make sure you know how to manage the different stakeholders. These are things you can prepare in advance and practice these possibilities before the exam. But in the exam, you've got to always relate to what the information is given to you on the day. So don't go in there with cut and paste answers. It will never, ever work. You've got to react to what they give you on the day. They're talking about empowering staff, but it seems like very centralized, right? So that's an issue about structure. Flexible, but there seems like a problem of work-life balance. They also mention here discrimination and diversity. Points towards an ethical question. It might also point towards a board of directors diversity. In the post scene, the directors could all be old, male, Caucasians. There's no diversity. How do they increase the diversity? Diversity of the board. Okay, so I'm just going to take a water, and I've been through quite a lot of possibilities there. And the way you prepare is look at everything I've said and make sure you've got the technology knowledge, but don't go in there with cut and paste answers. You've always got to react to what they ask you on the day. It must link specifically to the case on the day. Okay, I'm ready for your questions. This will be on YouTube, yeah. So you will see this. You'll get a copy of this if you go to the YouTube channel and click like, please, and subscribe. Yeah, so the podcast does have a transcript. If you look at it on Spotify, it will have a transcript service. Yeah. Yeah, so I think, I think actually YouTube may have that as well. So, yeah. There will also be subtitles as well. Time management. Yeah, thanks, Bill. A quick question on time management. Okay, so time management, basically the best sort of time management thing we can look for is 45 minutes planning. 45 minutes planning. You need to plan your examples, read the case, plan. Planning is important. Planning is what successful students do. 45 minutes planning, 1.5 minutes per mark. That is the time management technique. 45 minutes planning, 1.5 minutes per mark. Plan your examples, plan your application points in advance. Bill? Can we expect questions on strategies to solve the PVS current problems? Of course, we can expect anything, right? So it's not about sentences, it's about quality. So roughly, as a rough guide, a paragraph, 2 marks, requires a point, an example, and an explain. So roughly, as a rough guide, 2 sentences on your point, 2 sentences on your apply and explain. If you're going to, your point can be 1 sentence, but your apply and explain should be 3 almost, because that is where you're going to get the extra mark, but potentially the professional marks as well. So roughly. Is there any advice about how to link the exhibit to the answer? Plan it in advance, right? Plan your examples in advance, I would say. Plan your examples in advance. So to link to the exhibit, every paragraph must have a link back to the case, must have an example. If you're writing a paragraph of knowledge, you're failing, must link back to the case, must link back to the case in the organization. Okay. Right. How many sentences? Yeah, we've done that one. How much do we need to schedule to read the exhibits? 45 minutes reading and planning. 45 minutes read and plan before you start to write. And then 1.5 minutes per mark. I would read all the exhibits first. So what I do is we plan everything before we start to write. So we go to the question, identify the keywords, and then read all 4 exhibits. Question 2, and plan them out. But not all relate. So question 2, you need to read again. Question 3. So that's how I normally do it, right? Actually plan everything out. Getting listed company, we should also mention something like external auditors, internal auditors. Yeah, so if we're going to go listing, we definitely need to improve our corporate governance, better internal control systems, etc. Okay, how do I get a transcript? I won't be giving a PDF, but you can look at it on YouTube. You can fill it in yourself. So it will be on YouTube. You can actually make notes yourself, print out the case study, add in your annotations, so you can add it in yourself. I think there is a way to get that on YouTube. I'm not sure. Ethical question. What do you say? You apply the ethical principles. So I think this board structure with only one NED NEDs are good to have, right? Because they give an external outside perspective. So it's good to have more NEDs, but like, don't make it like, oh, there's no NEDs. It's totally wrong. I don't think it is. NEDs can provide an external perspective from outside the organization. Having more would be good, but it's not like an absolute must in this business. But, having more is good. But don't say, oh, it's totally wrong, because the shareholders are there in the business. And one of the main roles is to make sure the shareholders are informed, but they're informed because they're there every day. I'm planning to start the last question, which is generally the lowest mark question, so I need to spend less time on it and jump to the other questions. What do you think? I don't like it. I don't like it. I mean, you've got to complete the entire exam. You can do it in any order you want, but just make sure you complete, right? Smart people fail the exam by failing to complete. You must be very strict with your time management. Always move on to a new question, I would say. Always move on to a new question. It's like, if you're like running out of time, it's much better to start a new question, because there's lots of easier marks to get. We call low-lying fruit. So it's much easier to do that if you kind of do it in order. You don't have to do it in order, but you've got to do everything anyway. So I don't see an advantage of starting the last question last, because you might run out on the if you say it's got the lowest marks, sometimes it does, sometimes it doesn't. But you might then run out of time on the one that's got more marks. So, it's a question of balancing. Your time is more important than the sequence. Thank you for your review. Thank you, Theo, thank you. Any advice in the remaining days? Signee, advice in the remaining days is listen to my podcast. So my podcast has got things. I've got a podcast on talent management. How does Google do their talent management? I've got a podcast on technology, right? These are all 10 minutes long. I've got a podcast. There'll be more podcasts potentially if I can find time between marking. There could be another podcast coming up. So do the podcast, 10 minutes each way. Everything I've said here is potentially going to be a question on the exam. So, go to the YouTube once it's up. The other thing you can do, if you've got the money and you've got the budget, is you can do a mock exam based, 2 mock exams based on the pre-scene. So there's a course which gives you 2 mock exams based on the pre-scene. Get in touch. If you'll have to buy it now or before Monday, you can have a full mock exam based on the pre-scene, which you can sit on Tuesday. And that's a good way to prepare. And you'll also get a second mock exam based on the pre-scene on Friday. So that's a good way to prepare. Can we expect questions requiring answers based on specific models? It's possible. The models are really there to structure your answer. If you get asked a question which is like really relates to a specific model and you don't know the model, you can still get marks by just having a go. So they do occasionally do that. Can we have one mock plan? I don't understand what you mean by one mock plan. How much is the mock? The mock course is expensive. It's $200. So that's what it is. It takes a lot of time to put together, and I've not been sleeping for 2 days to write 2 mock examinations. The mock exam is basically any time. It opens on Tuesday at 0001 UK time, and it closes on Wednesday UK time at 23:59. So it can be done at any time in those 2 days. Oh, ACCA, it's like you've got to do a course, man. it's like that's like my whole course is about that. Yes, I do spend a lot of time going through the course. It's like I can't tell you that in like a minute. There's like a lot of work goes into like understanding the question, and that's my boot camp, my 4-day boot camp. I talk about that for 4 days, how to interpret the question. I can't do it in like a minute. Sorry. There is on my YouTube channel, there's a video, Iki, which is called How to Pass SBL. There's some tips on there, a little bit of the tips maybe in that. Have a look at the YouTube video, How to Pass SBL. Have a look at that. There's some tips and clues on there. Yeah, I'm going to be closing if there's any more questions. So please like and subscribe to the YouTube. Please keep an eye on the podcast. LinkedIn is where I post any updates. Will be on LinkedIn. Please find me on LinkedIn and follow me, because any new information, any new podcasts, I'm going to post on LinkedIn first. So please follow me on that, and please like and subscribe. I want to get 1,000 YouTube by this weekend. So please, everybody, just go to my YouTube channel and please subscribe so we can get to 1,000. That's my goal by the end of the weekend. I want to get 1,000 YouTubes. Okay. Thanks very much, everybody. Good luck in your examination, and don't forget the key is application. Application is going to be your key factor that's going to help you pass the examination. Always mention the case in every paragraph. Okay. Thanks very much, everybody.